Okay, hello everybody. Hello and welcome from the sunny rural metropolis, budding rural metropolis of Owen Sound, located snugly in the northern half of southwestern Ontario. This is once again another VAWMA Chats episode. Today is going to be pretty chill and pretty relaxed. It's just going to be me and Rebecca today. So say hello, Rebecca.
Hello, Rebecca.
Oh, wonderful. That was great comedic timing. I appreciate that. Thank you for going there with me. Um,
I'm secretly 12 years old.
aren't we all?
Yes.
Welcome, welcome.
I have discovered this growing up. I have discovered this.
Hmm.
We are all secretly 12 years old.
Well, on the presumption, of course, that we made it to 12 in the first place. But for all those who are joining us who have, hello and welcome. For those of you who are looking forward to your 12th birthday, we celebrate with you. Um, and today, we're just going to be today we're going to be talking as per usual a little bit about cooperatives and a little bit about the VAWMA idea. And VAWMA, for those who are not in the know, is an acronym. It stands for the Voluntary Association for Work and Mutual Aid. And what it is and what we are all about is about creating community-owned, worker-directed cooperative businesses that meet the needs of the local economy, providing good, well-paying, living wage jobs for workers, giving them control over their schedules, while at the same time if and when we make a profit or surplus, we split that surplus between everybody who helped contribute to make it, based according to how much they put in. And that's the basic nutshell of what it is we're trying to do. And everything else is just filling in the details. Um, yeah. And to that end, last week we were talking a little bit about the different what were we talking about last week? Education, information, and training. A very important topic, especially if
Indeed.
you want to remember some stuff. And I think Rebecca, you weren't able to join us on the live stream, but I think you were watching us in the background there.
Did I might have caught it afterwards.
Ah, fair enough. I can't
I can't
remember.
remember.
It may have just
Last
been.
week was so long ago.
I know, right?
Give me the
Because
hard question.
I very true, and sort of on the spot. And today we did kind of start a little bit late. We had some of the technical difficulties, such as life comes with the territory. Makes things a little bit more interesting, gets the heart pumping, and
Really?
and also like just for like a bit of extra context as well. Like there was a bit of a tragedy in my world. A very close family friend kind of passed away
Mhm.
suddenly, and so that kind of threw a cog into my works for this week's podcast. This week we were supposed to be talking about um, the topics of co-ops or cooperation amongst co-ops, which we might talk about, a little bit here and there. But I do not have a full talk or lecture prepared on the nature of VAWMA and cooperatives, cooperation amongst cooperatives. Just some vague ideas. And so, well, when I say vague, it's vague for me. I'm sure that would sound very specific to most people who listen to me talk about it for a little bit. Um,
You go into quite a lot of detail sometimes
I
with
do.
these vague ideas.
I do, and I suspect that's part of the evidence of like my being on the spectrum
Yeah,
or
oh yeah.
something along there, and which is always fun. But I won't go down that particular bunny trail, although I could, and because maybe I will go down that bunny trail a little bit because part of the reason why I am passionate about the VAWMA project is in creating a work environment that works for neuroatypicals,
Yeah.
for persons who don't necessarily fit into the typical mold that our society likes our human beings to fit into, so that we're useful
Hmm.
to the capitalist business owning class. Okay, I get it. It's what has allowed our society to kind of grow technologically and all that other fun stuff. But at the end of the day, if it's not working for the human beings that all this is supposedly for, then why are we doing it? You know,
Hmm.
like we're killing our planet, so that we can, drive to Starbucks. I don't know. That to me seems silly. If given my druthers, I'd
Yeah.
rather live in a village, with my community of friends where we get together, do what we need to do to survive, in terms of making food and stuff. And shelter, clothing, all the necessities of life, and then spend the rest of our day playing Dungeons and Dragons or something. Making music together, making good food together, and then eating it together, and then celebrating together. Like that's the kind of life I want to live. And to that end, I would like to introduce everybody to the idea of the Voluntary Association for Work and Mutual Aid. Um, because we intend to be the like, let me back up if I may, because like when we were doing the November meetings for the that kind of started this whole project out in the public eye. One of the things that we laid down as our foundation is the idea that we would have regular recurring mutual aid gatherings. And,
Hmm.
with the basic idea being that, this isn't necessarily going to be, a place where everybody's problems are fixed or anything, but it is going to be a place where we intentionally get together as a community of friends and just check in with each other. Just make sure that everybody's okay. Make sure that nobody's in crisis, and if somebody's in crisis, then we come together as a community to figure out how we can, help the person in crisis. And then from there, we fill everybody's stomach, so that nobody's hungry. And then from there, we break out the cribbage boards, the deck of cards, the guitars, and the karaoke machine or whatever. And then we just kick back and celebrate being alive, while we can, with good friends and good cheer. And that is something that I think existed in the past in our society,
Yeah.
in when it was its healthiest. It hasn't always. There's always been parts of society that have been isolated from each other, that have been uh, stuck, I guess, in a kind of mental squalor of their own making, or inflicted on them by the systems that may be. And but when people are healthiest, I really genuinely believe this, is when people are together and singing together.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, and so I think,
In community. This used to be
mm-hmm,
normal in our society. It used to be normal for people to get together and make music together
mm-hmm,
and eat together.
mm-hmm.
And people are going crazy because we don't have it.
Well, and it's
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 hard.
not. It really is hard, and it's not like it doesn't, like our culture is completely devoid of it. It's just,
No,
for most of
it's
it,
not
like,
natural. It's you have to seek it out. People don't have the money for music lessons,
mm,
so nobody knows how to make their own music. They can only, you know, buy
consume it.
CDs, consume it, buy other people's music. It's
Mm,
very different.
right? And I think that, yeah, like, and everything seems to be gatekept behind paywalls as well,
Yeah,
right? So it's not impossible to go and find like a kind of tribe, that I believe humans evolved to be a part of. Groups of like around 100 or so people that you knew their names of, that you knew their faces of, that you knew whether or not you could trust them, or whether or not they had your back because they were part of your tight knit community that you grew
yeah,
up in. And we now live in cities of hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions of people, and and it's difficult to find our community, our tribe. Even like a half a dozen is difficult to maintain within the structures, within the way that we've organized our society.
mm,
And so I guess, there are alternatives out there. You could go to church, or a religious community. They do tend to pass the offering plate around, but they don't tend to put a gun to your head if you don't put money into it. They just shame you a little bit, which
Oh,
is which sometimes can be feel
depends on the
like this is
church.
that's true, that's true. But we're not here to cast shade on any specific denomination today. We are here to cast vision for what we can do as an alternative for people who aren't particularly inclined towards a specific deity or deities, as the case may be. And even if you are, I want a place to create a place where people are welcome to come and express their culture, to express their values, to express their histories and traditions in a way that celebrates what it means to be human, what it means to be alive.
Mm.
That recognizes that no human being has come here without humans that have come before them. And
Yeah.
like even like we inherit our language from the people who have come before us. Our entire basis for understanding the universe in which we live, the language that we use, is given to us either by our parents directly or through society in large, through our education and through living in it. And like these are all things that go around my head, and then when I ultimately come to the conclusion of now what therefore should I be doing with my life in the time that I have here, the only conclusion I can come to is to like maximize, pardon me, the experiences that I have that are good, that build up, that produce joy, that are singularly unique and that fill me with awe and wonder, and to make sure that I'm not hindering anybody else from fulfilling those things for themselves as well, and.
Mm.
And so, to that end, I discovered that I'm living in a society which is, set up with laissez-faire capitalism, late stage capitalism, where a lot of things, within our neoliberal context, everything worth doing is gate kept behind a paywall. And if you as an individual do not have enough money to pay the entry fee in order to gain access to whatever good or service or whatever it is that makes life worth living, hard cheese for you.
Participating in society.
Yeah, and
It's hard to
and
do now. If you can't afford a cell phone,
mm,
whew, there's whole chunks of society you can't participate in.
right,
You don't have a
but
house? Mm.
but I mean, even our homeless people, like we had a couple of people come out to our VAWMA events last year who were essentially living under a tarp down by the mill dam.
Mm. Mm.
They still had cell phones.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
still had smartphones, because like you need it in our
You have
society,
to.
really. Even
Yeah.
if you're homeless,
You
like
can't do anything without it.
right, and but be that as it may, one of the early visions that I had, not for VAWMA, but for the previous incarnation of what became VAWMA, the 10-100 idea, one of the things that I had in mind is that we would kind of organize our meetings and get things done by using like our cell phones or our smartphones to kind of log votes and meetings and things like that, right? And then I got to thinking, well, what happens if somebody who's a member of our group doesn't have a cell phone or a smartphone
Mhm.
and can't yeah, I said, well, that's easy. We just the company will just buy, I don't know, 100 smartphones, and we'll distribute to our members based on their needs. So if you have your smartphone, you just log on to our portal using your smartphone, and you're fine. If you don't have a smartphone, one will be provided for you. When you're done with it, give it back, and we'll make sure that somebody else can use it. And in the meantime, you're welcome to put your own SIM card in it, and you can use a phone provider, and you can use it as your own phone.
Wow.
But yeah, so that was like part of the early vision for like what we would do Now that everything is kind of like morphed and evolved into VAWMA, if and when we get to a point where we are turning a surplus, where we are making money rather than losing money, I think one of the valid expenditures that we could put our surplus towards would be things like having like a surplus of ready to go smartphones, maybe even VAWMA branded. We could do like the not Wish, what is it, the Alibaba thing, or like some alternative thereof that could uh, that we just like bulk buy 1,000 of these phones at like 35 cents a phone or something like that. And then we would make sure anytime somebody becomes a member of VAWMA, in order to maximize participation in VAWMA, you would get to borrow, indefinitely until it's broken or until it needs to be replaced or until you leave. One of these smartphones that we got for like pennies on the dollar because we bought them in bulk. And then we can like preload it with like our portal structure that allows you to participate fully in VAWMA, both as a community member or as a union member or as a dedicated member or a producer member. Whichever kind of membership class we've got, we'll have it set up so that your smartphone that you get from us will be primed and ready to interact with us at any circle meeting you may be a part of or any general meeting where we take votes from the membership. And when it comes time for voting and stuff like that, you could do the old-fashioned, raise your hand or like drop a, colored marble into a bucket and then you count up all the marbles afterwards, sort of thing. That's one of the classic forms of voting for stuff like this. Or you can just use your phone, and it can be anonymous at the front end, so people can't necessarily see if you voted yay or nay on whether or not to adopt a particular project. But you would have a receipt, so you would be able to know how you voted on that particular item, and yeah, like that's the sort of thing that I conceive of there. Yeah. So, uh,
Wow, yeah, that's really thinking about all the angles. That sounds like a future plan for when
yeah, 100%.
it's rolling.
Yeah, that's
But
like a VAWMA 3.0
I
sort of
really
idea.
yeah, yeah, but I really like your idea, which I think is more 1.0 of it, having the meetings be a community event and with music and things like that.
Well, yeah, because that's where we can start. As long as we have a place to gather, even if it's in somebody's backyard to begin, then we can start regular meetings, and we can just like
Mm,
be people that are like invested in each other, just getting together, maybe once a month to start, but ideally just regular public meetings once a week. Just start having them and just
yeah.
build it into our routines where like
Well,
once a week we get
I don't
together,
know.
we check in.
I don't know if you'll get people once a week, but maybe eventually, but once a month for sure. But
Maybe it's the old church planter in me.
it is hard. People have a hard time investing time in things.
That's true.
Like everybody's busy, and we still are dealing with the precarious work
Mm,
and people having to work overtime and things like that,
yeah.
which can be ridiculous and make it very difficult for people to participate in weekly events. Um, so
Hmm.
we'd have to take that into account.
Well, and part speaking right
But
into the
but
fact that people are burnt out.
if it's just open, if it's just
Mhm.
open, then people can show up or not, right? So
Exactly.
maybe if it's a fay that starts the whole thing, then it's just natural to once a week have a night where you can show up if you want, and if you can't pay that week, you don't. And if you don't
Mhm.
have enough money for food, then maybe you'll get some food,
Right, and then I
and
think
you can sing your song.
right, I may be having some internet issues. I'm not too sure. I'm seeing the internet gonna go slow on my end, which is, now when I've checked things out afterwards and the post stream, usually things have been smooth the entire time. So I haven't been worried about the chugging I'm seeing on YouTube.
Hmm.
But if anybody is watching the stream
Hmm.
live, if you can, just throw an F in the chat if things are going wonky, and a thumbs up if things are good. I don't know. But we'll keep an eye out for that. Regardless, going to the idea of like a regular meeting, I really suspect, honestly, it would. This is where I think some of the training I received as a missionary slash church planter was might be good at coming into play, due to the fact that sorry, just from the fact that it's kind of community organizing training, and okay, all that aside,
Hmm.
with the regular recurring meeting, that is open, that people just know on say Sunday afternoons or Monday nights. We know that we can go to James's place. There'll be a barbecue, and there will be, we can bring some food. We'll bring some wieners, bring some buns, bring something to drink, bring some chips. I don't know, but everybody just brings a little something for the barbecue, and then we all have a
Nice.
barbecue, right? And then and that's
Yeah.
kind of where it starts. Now I don't have a place where I can have a barbecue, but there's a good chance that if we cast this vision out amongst the community, eventually we'll find either a venue where we can have a regular meeting, something like the Owen Sound Hub, which unfortunately
Oh
the
yeah.
owner is planning on retiring in August. So if we're going to do it, we kind of need to get started, and then we need to line up a place where we can continue these meetings afterwards, and maybe that becomes the impetus for us to actually form and become an entity that is more than just an idea, which would be cool in and of itself. I'm getting a stream
Mhm.
hiccup from the chat. Um, oh dear. I'm seeing stuff on the stream there as well, but you know what? Um, Move forward one step at a time. Uh oh. Stabilizing now. Perfect. Um, what was I saying? Uh oh. Did I lose you? So,
No,
like I
I'm
was
here.
saying. Oh, like I was saying earlier, we are having technical difficulties today. Just in terms of my internet and stuff. I probably should have power cycled my modem before I tried streaming today. I'll do that next week. Uh, with regards to the mutual aid aspect of things, though, um, like that really to me does feel like the foundational place where we start is just as friends checking in with each other and doing it intentionally, kind of like the podcast. It's like, even when, like, last night when I was thinking, like, should I cancel the podcast, should I, or is it important to just keep the momentum going, and I think for me it's important to kind of keep the momentum going. It's like, getting things started requires so much energy for me, so many spoons, right? Whereas keeping the momentum going
Yeah.
requires less spoons, right? And I don't know why, but it just is.
Yeah.
And plus, an excuse to have an hour where I can just talk unabashedly about the VAWMA idea always puts wind in my sails, and wags my tail, so to speak.
Yes.
Um, so, yeah. All that to say, education, training, and information was really important last week. Um,
Mm.
sorry. Um, well, and
Can I say,
yep.
I I wanted to just emphasize again because it's so important that um I love how you immediately, with this co-op idea, thought we need to have a community because community is so important, and it is something that austerity um, crushes. It crushes community. With austerity, people can't afford to send their kids to music lessons. They can't afford to join clubs or, do projects, things that they love, because everybody's scrimping and saving. Everybody's scared. Everybody has these weird hours with precarious work and ridiculousness, and
It's true.
it really destroys the community. And this is the number one thing that helps people to not become, terrorists and stuff like that. And
Right.
everything down from there, every mental health problem. Um, Obviously, some people aren't going to be helped by community, but many, many people will be helped
Hmm.
by having a community. And we need to build this up as, a country. We need to build this back up again. It's been destroyed with the austerity. So much of our community has dissolved, and we don't really notice it. Like, people can't go to the choirs that they used to. They can't go to the sports events that they used to because they're just too busy and they don't have the money. And the community kind of dissolves away, and then you get people fighting each other.
Hmm.
Well, we need to build that back up, the feeling that we can, as a community, get together, make music, make food, enjoy each other, and be together even if we're different. It's so vital. And not there it's not silly to be focusing on this stuff when you're talking about making money,
Hmm.
because this is actually a solid foundation for a good economy, not like ripping through, taking everything, making a bunch of money, and then crash, there's nothing left. but
Right.
but a stable economy with people, um where the workers own the business. They can make decisions for it that are, for the community, and
Hmm.
not from the CEO from the big city who doesn't know anything about the community and doesn't care. Uh,
Yeah.
so
When I.
so
Mhm.
this idea of getting together, once a week or whatever, having a, community night is just so fundamental.
Right. I don't know if I ever went into some of like the details about like how I originally envisioned that it would look, but it would be like it was inspired by what's her name, somebody Barbara Shear, who would do these circles where people would get around in the circle, and the point of the circle was to realize your dream. And the thing you had to do in the circle was that you had to identify what your dream was, and then you had to identify the obstacle for you achieving that dream. And then everybody goes around
Hmm.
the circle and helps you figure out what you need to do to overcome that obstacle. Oftentimes, by the people who are contributing to the conversation also contributing what they bring to the table in order to help that person succeed and fulfill their dream. And the possible, the one of the great stories she tells is like there's this guy who's like an accountant or something, and he would come to these circles, and every time they would go around the circle and people would say what their dream was, and he would always be there to make sure that person would be able to fulfill their dream. And finally it came turn to be his, the night came where it was his turn, where they asked him, what's your dream? He's like, oh, it's silly. And it's like, well, what do you want? He's like, I want to be a cowboy. He's like from Toronto, and he's like a Bay Street guy, and so he's like, uh, he doesn't know any cowboy. As far as he knows, the cowboy profession, stopped with the movies, right? But he grew up watching the movies, and so I always wanted to
Oh
be a
no.
cowboy. Long story short, somebody in the circle, their uncle owned a ranch out in Alberta where they raise cattle, and guess what? They have cowboys, and guess what?
Hmm.
They made a way for him to be able to go take care of that guy's books out in Alberta for like 2 days a month, and then for like the rest of the week that he's out been flown out in Alberta, he gets to go to the ranch and be a cowboy for a couple of days, and like that sort of thing inspired me to say, if we can do that to fulfill people's dreams, why the fuck don't we do that to, sorry everybody, why on earth, why on earth don't
Yeah.
we use that same principle to solve people's crises? Because I definitely want to get to the point where I can fulfill my dream, but I'm in crisis mode half the time because of the economic reality that I find myself in. So are a lot of my friends. And
Yep.
so let's eventually get to the point where we sit around the circle and ask ourselves how we're going to fulfill our dreams, after we've sat around the circle and said, okay, who's in crisis and what can we do to resolve the crisis? Same principle, where, if where people need to identify what their crisis is, and, what needs to be resolved in order to resolve that crisis, or what needs to be done in order to resolve the crisis, and then we as a community come around them and say, okay, then we're going to do as a community what we need to do to help you resolve your crisis, because of,
Yeah.
if one of us is going down, we're all connected, we're all interconnected in this.
Yeah.
No people are really islands, not at the end of the day.
Yeah.
The neoliberal individualism it's a farce. It's but
Yeah.
I'm not here to make that particular philosophical argument today. Maybe in the future. The point of the matter is that we don't just leave it there either. It's not just we come together, we sit around in our circle, and we share our dirty laundry with strangers or friends, potential and hopefully our crisis gets resolved. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But at least it's better than languishing alone in really languishing alone. Like I've got friends who I've talked to about this VAWMA idea and this part of the VAWMA idea, because like even though this is the foundational thing and I want this to continue like the regular mutual aid gatherings, once we've resolved everybody's crisis, the next step is to like come together and recognize and take inventory of like, what skills do we have, what training have we got, what material resources do we have, like what are at our fingertips, what can we do, does somebody have a
Mm.
surplus of something that we can start selling, that we can turn into a brick and mortar store and just get going. Let's
Mhm.
figure out what we've got and what we can do, and then from there, we compile our skills, we compile our material resources, and we apply our labor power to turn it all into a cooperative business, and then another cooperative business, and another cooperative business, until all of us have good, living wage jobs, that we have control over our schedules with, and and VAWMA then comes into existence, sort of idea. Um, and yet, while we're doing that, while we're going to work, day in day out, during the week, and things become normal, I sincerely hope that we never lose the regular gatherings, that becomes something that we invest in as a business, um,
Yeah, I like that.
enterprise, as a corporation, like even to the point where if we have to invest in paying people, like to make it like that's how they make their living. They are the VAWMA community reps who just make sure that the monthly, or like the weekly gatherings are happening, are facilitated, are safe. Because like one of the potentials you run into um, when you start something like this is that human beings are messy, and when you're dealing with somebody's crisis, there's often another human being on the other side of that crisis who's being castigated as the villain in this particular scenario,
Mhm.
and that inevitably is going to create, I think, drama. So like, if we're not careful, this can become a real shitstorm, a real storm, um, and
Oh my
uh,
goodness, James.
Yes, we're after 10 minutes. We're 10 minutes into the stream. We're not going to get demonetized. I mean, we're not going to get monetized either. So it's fine. But for all the grandmas out there listening, I apologize. But the point of the matter is, if I believe we can still accomplish what it is that we're trying to do, or what I'm hoping to do. If it's facilitated well and people are able to like keep ears out for accusatory language, and like maybe can like reframe and re-steer the conversation, so instead of like becoming a he said she said platform, it becomes a platform where we can like again identify what the crisis is and do what we need to resolve it, so that we don't so the person is no longer in crisis. We're not looking for a platform for people to have a bullhorn for.
Yeah,
And
and the circle people who do circle that sort of sociocracy kind of thing
hmm,
have methods for dealing with grievances. And
hmm,
so this is not something that is new. There are ways to make sure that if there's some psycho that they get taken care of, and that if people have legitimate grievances, they can have them dealt with too.
yeah, yeah, and it's interesting. Like it's just the passing turn of phrase, but it's like it's really built into our society there. Even like for my mind, like I think even the psycho probably has some sort of like valid
Yeah,
something valid driving
yeah,
their psychosis, and
yeah.
it's at the root, and maybe not. Sometimes people like legitimately hallucinate things and react to the hallucination. It happens. Human beings and consciousness is a very tentative
Hmm.
like the not tentative, but like it's very fragile.
Hmm.
And the more I understand how we function and operate on a molecular or cellular level, the more I'm frankly amazed that any of us ever function at all, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so all that to say, like if we can, like as we shift focus from the initial mutual aid gatherings and deal with everybody's immediate crises, and then start the businesses that will then give us the material resources to kind of claw our way out of poverty, and then we do it in such a way so that we don't kick the ladder out from underneath us, but we make ways out that people are inevitably finding themselves in. And like long-term vision, VAWMA 4.0 like has like a credit union that is able to invest into like new businesses, but also into things like housing cooperatives. And so
Mm.
then we just teach people how to come together with their friends, form housing cooperatives, or maybe we form a housing cooperative wing of VAWMA, where it's like we eventually just figured out that if everybody just chips in like 300 a month, say, for rent or for the housing stipend, then if like we've got thousands of people that are all chipping in $300 a month, that's a lot of money that we can use as like down payments, or we can just out and out buy properties or buy land, and then we can start building, and then once we've got the buildings, then we can just like yeah, we just like become a member of VAWMA, become a member of our housing cooperative, and if we don't have a house yet, we'll build one that's suited to your family size and needs, and if there's one available, we'll put you in the priority listing, and we just keep building housing until everybody's housed.
Yep.
I like that idea. Like that's one of the possibilities that we can take this thing. And certainly one that I would make the argument for when the time comes. But it's not one we can kind of start out at, I don't think. It's one of those things
Might
where
take a
when
little
we've
while.
yeah, and it might take us 20 years to get there. It might take us 10. It could take us 5, depending on how many people get on board with this and how
You
quickly it
never
takes
know.
off. Exactly. Like I was talking with somebody the other day, and they're like, "We like there's change in the air. People are
Yeah.
becoming aware that of their place in our economic system, and they're also becoming aware that their place in our economic system really is not a good. It's not a place of power. It's not a
Yeah.
position to be able to effectively bargain from as an individual, and to that end, people are in the absence of being educated of what is going on and what is actually happening to them in their environment. I think people are panicking and are giving into
Yeah.
fear and are
Yeah.
holding on to grasping out for whatever gives them the illusion of control over their lives and their immediate families. And to that end, I see a lot of people co-opting persons who, in my opinion, if they were class conscious, would never in a million years give their vote to the people that they're giving their
Yeah.
vote to.
Yeah.
And so, and I don't know how to effectively change that, because like I was not class conscious for the vast majority of my life, and I had no idea like of my position within our economic system and why my life looked the way it looked because of where I am in the economic system. It totally
Yeah.
makes sense, once somebody contextualizes it. But up until that point, it's the answers that were given to me was because well, this is God's will. This is part of
Yeah.
God's plan, for your life,
Well, and I
or
think
something.
even for people who every secular people, it's just like this is just the way it is. This is you're supposed to be miserable all day, working
Yeah.
every day, barely scraping by. This is normal, but it's not normal. And I think people are starting to wonder if maybe it, we don't need to live like this. We don't
Mm,
need to be miserable and you know owned by rich people. Maybe we don't need to live like this.
100%. I was thinking about this. It's like, and part of it is when I get into arguments with people, quite often what they end up falling back on is like, well, this is just the way things are. A, and B, I'm the realist because I am playing the game as it exists today.
Yeah,
That's them saying it, not me.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm sitting here going like, well, yeah, but the game is rigged so that only the people who are currently in the winning position are in a position to continue to win.
yeah,
Point A. Point B, if anybody who starts at the bottom is allowed to enter into the stream or strata where the winners are, it's because they've looked at that person, have decided that they are going to accept that person into their strata. Otherwise, they would just do whatever they needed to do to make sure that person did not enter into that strata, be it like create competitive businesses that undermine whatever business that other person
yeah.
is trying to accomplish, buy their supply chains and just refuse to do business with them.
Mm,
Like these people are not good people,
mm,
in my opinion,
mm.
and
I think you're right.
right? And which is fine. If the Capitals want to play the game that way, they're welcome to. I'm proposing that we just the rest of us who don't want to play that game just take one step to the left and as it were,
Yeah,
and stop playing their game their way and just get together, use their skills, use their resources, and do the exact same thing they were doing last Monday, only instead of for them, do it for themselves. you
yeah,
know I mean, if you were working in a warehouse, moving product for, an online retailer, just get together with everybody else in the warehouse and a few web developers, find some people to get some product, even if you have to start off of Wish or Alibaba or AliExpress or something, and start your own online retail. Find out, what's going on. Now, the problem with that, of course, is that the major online retailers are wise to that sort of game, and so they keep an eye out. They keep an eye out for those people that are trying to be their competition, and they take steps to ensure that they are, cut out of the game unless you're really smart or really lucky or have a really niche product. Um, Chances are really good. I don't know. As I'm
Yeah,
thinking
I
about
was
it,
looking at something a couple of months ago about how Walmart is little fish now. They're so small.
hmm,
And they used to be that they own whole cities worth of docks, so they constantly have their shipping and so on,
right.
and no, now they're dwarfed
I
by
wonder because I was looking up. Amazon actually lost money last year. Um, let's see if how Walmart did. Whew. All right, so Amazon like lost money last year. Um, it looks like Walmart grossed 143.75 billion according to Google. So that feels like a lot.
yeah.
And can you
But if
imagine?
but
Now
if you
that's gross. That's not net.
look at yeah, no, but there are companies that are much bigger than them that could stomp on Walmart. Uh and that's really not great.
For 2022, their net profit was 13 billion, I believe. 13.673 billion. Now, imagine if you would, if that money, instead of going to the Waltons, was divided between the communities that Walmart was in. So instead of that money being extracted from the local economies, that money would then be redistributed amongst the local economies based on how much money you spent at Walmart. You and also the workers who are doing the work of getting you your stuff from Walmart, they would also participate in that 13 billion that was made that year net.
Mm.
And instead of it being once again extracted to the Waltons, it would be redistributed amongst everybody based on either how many hours you worked or um, how much money you spent with us, that sort of thing. Yeah. And so that to me is like the real excitement for, well, not. I say that every time. This is the real excitement for me for VAWMA, and then I'll come up with something else and I'll be like, and this is the real excitement. But it is the opportunity like for us to redistribute uh, the surplus that is made, the profits we made, not to like a small handful of rich elite business owners, but to the community, um, and to really invest. Like every time I look at like Walmart or Tim Hortons or some of these kinds of large multinational corporations, and just how much money they are extracting from our local economies, like that's money that's being taken out and is not going to be circulating in around Owen Sound ever again.
Yep.
And whereas with our model, that money stays within our local economy and is circulated into our local economy, and it just produces more and more. Like I can't see how this would not help our local economy, help stimulate growth in our
Absolutely.
economy. And if it would stimulate growth in our local economy, there's a good chance it would stimulate growth in anybody else's local economy as well.
Hmm.
So, getting this template in working order so that we can prove that it works, so that we can show that it can be applied, and maybe people can take the different um, business ideas we've got, like run them like franchises. If we get the Cafe Libre template working out that we find works in Owen Sound, and you're in like Medicine Hat, or in someplace else, in ruralish Canada, and you're like, well, we need a job creator. This Cafe Libre thing, they've got it down to a science. They need 25 people. There are 25 of us, friends that are unemployed or various degrees of unemployment, and maybe we can pick up what this VAWMA idea and this Cafe Libre idea, and we can do it in our hometown, and then VAWMA, as part of the cooperation between co-ops. I told you we'd work it in, maybe. We'd hopefully be at a point where we had like a credit union by that point that would be able to invest in outside, like, new VAWMA chapters across Canada, and maybe eventually even the world, where we can actually start to introduce this uh, vehicle of creating worker and community ownership, with worker direction.
Well,
um,
and remember
yeah,
that this has been done before. That
right.
this isn't a completely new idea.
Yes. Yeah, and one of the days we should actually take a look at some of the classic different businesses that are out there, the cooperative businesses that have gone before us, where they've succeeded, in terms of what they set out to do, and where they're different from what I'm hoping VAWMA becomes, because like I do have my criticisms of some of these things, like, and some of it is born from consumer feedback and people's experiences. Like, I've heard some criticisms of like the co-op store in the UK, for example, which is what the Rochdale Community of Equitable Pioneers eventually turned into. And like, there, when I hear that kind of criticism that they get, I'm like, oh, I understand, I get it.
But you got to
That's
tweak it.
why. Yeah, yeah, we're gonna tweak things. Like, I understand how they got from where they started to where they ended up 100 years later, or 150 years later, and you can watch their journey and see how it went. And part of it is learning that, like, when you have different class interests within a structure. For example, you have a class of members who are consumers. Their goal is to get the lowest possible price for what it is that they're buying from us, right?
Mhm.
They want to get the best bang for their buck. Whereas workers want to get paid the most as they can, and which is now in conflict with the consumer that wants their product for as cheap as possible, right? So if you have a consumer based cooperative and you're an employee of that cooperative, your experience with cooperatives might actually be really negative, because at that point, if you're just an employee of a consumer cooperative, well, because that consumer cooperative wants to give the cheapest possible price to their consumer, not the best possible pay to their employee, guess who? And because that employee is not an owner, they are an employee in this context. Um, the employee is technically a wage slave, and they get the wage slave wages. So if that's your experience, and that's called a co-op. So if you're the employee in that context and somebody starts talking to you about co-ops, you're going to be like, oh, I know all about that. I was in a co-op once. I got paid shit wages and I had no control, and I don't know what you guys are talking about. And I'm like, well, tell me a little bit more about your co-op. And then you hear it was a consumer co-op, and then all of a sudden everything makes sense.
Yeah.
And then, same difference. I got a friend of mine who's in England who is a client for a worker owned cooperative, but she's not getting the kind of care that she needs. But because she's not an owner of that cooperative, the workers are, as the client, she has no recourse to be able to get what she needs as the client beyond being complaining as a
Mhm.
customer, which may or may not be taken into consideration by the individual members who are running that particular cooperative. Well, that's a problem too. So, like, there needs to be an overlap, a synthesis
Mhm.
where people who are clients in this particular case of like a healthcare service, should have just as much a say on the policies that affect them as the consumer as the worker does carrying out those policies that affect them as they carry them out. And
Yeah.
so my goal is to create the multi-stakeholder model where we bring our consumers together with our workers, and we allow them to work together to the place where everybody gets something out of it. Maybe not everybody's happy, but at least nobody is objecting. And that's the goal of sociocracy. We use sociocracy to accomplish that. And yeah, I think it's doable. Like I can see it happening in
It's
every.
doable.
Yeah, it's not 100% guarantee that it'll be resolved every single time. It's not a magic. It's going to take a lot of work, but I think it's doable, and I think it's worth doing, which is the other aspect of it. Because just because something is a lot of work doesn't mean it's worth doing. But this, I definitely think, is worth doing, which is why I'm here today.
Yes.
And why even though I'm completely woefully underprepared for today's podcast, we went and did it anyways, because it's worth doing, and it's worth keeping the momentum going. And I think we're almost up on an hour. We're kind of coming into the 57-minute mark, even though we had a couple minutes there at the beginning. But I think on that kind of note, we should probably bring her in for a landing.
Sounds like
Um,
a good landing spot.
I think so. I think so. And next week I'll have a little bit more time to sit down and work on our next topic of discussion, which is going to be a cooperation amongst cooperatives and how VAWMA fits into that philosophy, both as internally within itself, as we are intending to be multiple cooperatives functioning within an overall network. And so how do we create a cooperation between our different cooperative businesses, point number one. And then how do we cooperate with other cooperatives outside of AMA, because there's a whole universe of different cooperative businesses out there, and there are different philosophies in the approach to all that. But at the end of the day, cooperation is about solidarity, and solidarity is about helping each other out. So if we can, cooperatives, by and large, uh, um, are we definitely look for include other cooperatives within our bidding, within our what we're searching for. We'll go into it all next week. Rebecca, is there anything you'd like to say to the world, or shout out, or
Oh,
anything like
oh,
that?
oh, uh, no. No, that was great. It was a great chat. You covered a lot of important stuff that isn't really covered under the the standard explanation. There's some of this community stuff is also very important. It's good to talk about that too.
Yes, and the best thing about VAWMA. Yes. Thank you, Andy, with the chat. And thank you, everybody who's joined us up until now. If you haven't done so already, please hit the like button and subscribe. And we are here every Tuesday as much as we can. And we're always looking forward to hearing feedback from people. Our goal in all this really has been to give people who are kind of in the headspace we're at, where we're like, I want to start a cooperative and I have no idea where to start. Well, that's what this podcast is a little bit about. We want to start a cooperative. We have no idea where to go, so we're just going to start the podcast, figure out how we're going to do it, and bring you along for the journey. And hopefully, that's educational. That edifies you. And in any case, you can find us on Facebook, which is the best place to for us to kind of meet and talk and discuss and plan and dream and get up to all sorts of good, healthy shenanigans. And you can find the link for the group if you don't Google search for it, or you can find it in the description below. Beyond that, I don't think there's anything else I need to plug today. Rebecca?
I think we're done.
Wonderful.
Thank you for the lovely chat.
My pleasure, everybody. And to everybody else who's out there, if they haven't been told yet today, just remember you are awesome. Live long and prosper. And we'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.
Bye bye.